Hey everybody, this is Daniel the Hungry Hunter, and I'm here with Stephen Williford, the BareFoot Defender. Obviously, you guys know him from the channel. He does some amazing things, but today is going to be a bit different. We had some great information that just came out a few days ago, so we're going to talk about that. I've got some questions here for him. So if you're familiar with the Sutherland Springs incident, that's what today's topic will be about. So to be honest, it might get emotional because I'm an emotional guy. I know that Stephen can be as well, but that's what we're going to discuss today. So we're just going to get right into it. So kind of just quickly, just give me some background about Sutherland Springs. Not too much detail. We can do that at a later video. But just kind of for those that haven't heard about it, which I don't know who wouldn't have, but just kind of give us some quick background about that. And then I've got some questions here that I want to ask you.
On November 5th, 2017, a crazy man came into Sutherland Springs First Baptist Church, started shooting from the outside of the church, through the church windows and through the church walls. The church is about 100 years old, and so the walls they wouldn't withstand any kind of gunfire, and so the bullets were going straight through during Sunday morning service and started killing people. And he started moving into the church and started going from pew to pew, murdering people. I was home relaxing in my bed that day, and my daughter made me aware that the shooting was going on. I ran to my safe. I grabbed AR-15 and grabbed a magazine and a handful of ammunition and started loading it. I ran across the street, engaged the shooter. He hit the truck in front of me, shattered the windshield of the car behind me, hit the house behind me. I was able to put 6 out of 6 bullets on him. He got in his truck, he ran. He had on Class 3 body armor, so most of my shots didn't matter, but I did hit him in the side, I hit him in the legs, and I hit him once, broke across his forehead. And the rest of them were stopped by the body armor. He was able to get in his vehicle that was sitting in the middle of the street with the driver's side door open and the engine running. He had his getaway plan. I chased him 11.6 miles, and in the end, he chose to take his own life. And I'm okay with that.
Well, I know just from what we've talked about in the past and things, intense, and now that I live here, this is our community, this is my home as well now, and just all the history of that is definitely, when it comes up, it's definitely a hard topic at times. But good news, I guess, this week was a ruling that just happened. And what was that ruling? I guess there's some lawsuits going on, which I actually didn't know about until you had mentioned it. So what is the good news that happened this week?
Well, the good news is the judge here in Texas, federal judge, has now ruled that the Air Force is 60% at fault for the shooting, and that the lawsuits from the people that were shot and survivors can now go forward against the federal government.
Okay. So, because I know some people are going to ask and wonder why they would sue the Air Force and why that's important and significant that they are held responsible.
Absolutely, and I think this is such a cut and dry case, I don't know why it ever was in question at all. But the guy that was the shooter was initially an Air Force. He was in the Air Force. And while he was in the Air Force, his infant son started crying. And so to stop his infant son from crying, he dismembered his puppy alive in front of his infant son to get him to quit crying. And of course, that would never stop an infant from crying, seeing his puppy dismembered in front of his face. And so it didn't stop him from crying. And so this piece of crap, sorry about that, beat his infant son until he fractured his skull. And he ended up like I think a year and a half in jail for that. Family violence, cruelty to an animal. He spent a year and a half in jail, which I personally believe he should have spent the rest of his life in jail.
Yeah.
But that's the way things work. And the Air Force didn't discharge him. They don't do that. When you commit a felony or whatever, you go ahead and you go to Leavenworth, whatever military jail. You spend your term in jail. And then when they release you, then they go through process. Well, he went in to be processed afterwards, before the military. And he threatened to come in with a gun and shoot and kill every one of his commanding officers. So the military was like, whoa, this guy is nuts. So they put him into a mental institution where he escaped from the mental institution. And then they dishonorably discharged him. Now, anyone that's ever bought a gun needs to think about this for a moment. What's on that yellow form? What's on that yellow form? Family violence.
Yeah.
He beat his son until he fractured his skull. That's family violence. Felonies. Beating his son was a felony on top of being family violence. It's a felony also. And cruelty to an animal is another felony. Terroristic threats. He threatened that he was going to come back and kill everybody. Mental instability is on that yellow form. They institutionalized him into a mental hospital. And then on the form it also asks, have you ever been discharged from the military other than honorably? Dishonorable discharge is another one. And he lied on all of those forms. But the Air Force, for whatever reason, decided that they weren't going to enter any of his past into the NICS system. The NICS system is the instant background check system that everybody goes through when they go to buy a gun. So since they didn't enter any of this information into the NICS system, he came back that he was okay to buy a gun. And initially, 4 of the families in Sutherland Springs were suing Academy Sports and Outdoors. And I think that was a bogus lawsuit. I personally really thought that was a horrible lawsuit. Because Academy ran the background check, but since the Air Force dropped the ball, none of it came back, and so Academy sold him the rifle that they did.
I mean, this guy, it sounds like he checked every box on somebody you do not sell a gun to, and had they entered that information in. Even though he lied, it would have been like, no, we can't sell you a gun.
Yes.
Okay.
So he lied on all of them. And see, that's another thing that we need to address. You know, people say, well, what are we going to do? And I personally believe that background checks are okay to buy guns. Background checks are all right. But nowadays, the federal government, when you go in and you do a background check, they call it try and cry. So if you go in and you've got a felony and you go try, you go fill out and you lie on that form, and you fill out that form, the gun dealer just comes back with a negative. You don't get the gun. They don't know why. But whoever the FBI that background check goes through, they know why they turned him down. They should go to that man's house and say, you just lied on a federal document. That's another felony. That gives them reason to come into your home. A warrant. Serve a warrant. Go pick him up, arrest him, search his home, see if he has any other firearms. Now, all of a sudden, these people that are going and trying to get guns and lying about it are now being arrested for their prior felonies and owning guns and stuff too.
And that leads into a whole other conversation that I think we can get into on another video, because then the argument could be now is that another infringement of rights. But like I said, I think that opens up a whole other can of worms that we can talk about later. So getting back to this here, they didn't enter the information. And so now the judge has said they're responsible, 60% responsible. So basically saying, well, they're responsible because they didn't enter it in. So what kind of implications does this have, not just for this current lawsuit, but for things in the future that, I mean, this is a huge, I mean, for them not to do that, I'm sure there's got to be others then that they didn't do the same thing with.
They've actually checked in on that, and it's like 77,000 different times the U.S. military didn't enter information like this on 77,000 different people.
Wow.
In the past. And those people are still walking around able to buy guns. And I don't know what their felonies are, and their felonies are for various different reasons and stuff. But that's where the government has dropped the ball. People say we need a new law for this or new law for that. I say we don't need any new laws, and the government isn't even enforcing and taking care of the ones that we have on the books.
Wow.
That allow this kind of thing to happen.
So do you think they'll ever, well, I mean, how do you update that, right? Like, how do you update that many type of records? And
what John Cornyn did, the Fix Nix bill, and got it passed, and it was signed into law by President Trump. And the Fix Nix bill fixed it going forward, but it didn't go back retroactive. So now with this lawsuit, if this lawsuit goes forward, they're going to have to take a deep look at everybody in the past that has gotten away with this.
Wow.
And they're going to have to go back, and they're going to have to fix this problem too. It's about more than just the money. And make no mistake, my community, Sutherland Springs, needs the money.
Yeah.
I mean, you have a 17-year-old boy that was a senior in high school that was signed up to be a Marine, had his whole life in front of him, had a plan. And in the church, he got shot 7 times. That 17-year-old boy, if you want to call him, I call him a man, kicked a young girl underneath a pew so that the shooter didn't see her. It saved her life. And the shooter shot him 7 times, and his grandmother crawled on top of him and sacrificed her own life to save his. And now the Marines don't want him. And the last I talked to this person's mother, she said he owed over $250,000 worth of medical bills.
Wow.
And he had 2 more surgeries scheduled. So now his whole life he wanted to be a Marine. That's what he wanted to do. The Marines don't want him because he's got pins and screws holding himself together. And so what he wanted to do for the rest of his life is gone. And now presently, I guess he's 21 years old. And he owes $250,000 and hasn't had 1 day of college.
Wow.
And future medical bills.
Wow, that's great.
And that's just one. We could talk about the 5-year-old boy that got shot 5 times. And is going to have surgeries to keep him up and walking until he quits growing. And the 7-year-old girl that got shot multiple times, and the same thing with her. Or David Colbath, and I can mention his name because he's not a minor, got shot 8 times.
Wow.
And now is suffering from lead leaching into his system, and suffering for short-term memory loss because of that lead poisoning that just keeps reoccurring. Or Kris Workman. Kris Workman's a perfect example. He got shot in the back and is paralyzed from the waist down for the rest of his life. How do you put a dollar value on any of this?
Yeah.
And you can't. But they're going to need help. For the rest of their lives, they're going to need help. And it was directly because the Air Force failed to do its job that it was supposed to do.
And you know what's crazy is that probably only would have taken 15 minutes to update a record and to enter that information in there.
Ooh, I'm sure it wouldn't even taken somebody on a computer even that long.
Yeah, just that little bit of time just to do the job.
And somebody was hired to do it.
Yeah. Wow.
Somebody was hired to do it. I mean, see, that's just it, is the government so often hires people to do jobs and they're inept at their own jobs and they don't do what they're required to do, and there's no consequences for that either.
Yeah, well, hopefully this changes that. So we touched on a couple things here. So this is what I do want to ask you. And so why do you feel obligated to speak out for the families?
Well, for one thing, I'm not part of this lawsuit. I didn't get in the lawsuit. I guess I could have, but I did not get into this lawsuit because I didn't suffer any personal injury, at least physical injury, nor did I lose a family member. And I stayed out of the lawsuit, and that allowed me to be able to talk about this. The family members that are in the lawsuit, they can't speak about it because
ongoing litigation, things like
ongoing
that.
Litigation, because the lawsuit's going forward. Well, this frees me up to be a voice. They can't stop me from talking about it. I don't have anything to gain from it. I have nothing to gain from it. But I feel an obligation to be there for my community.
Well, it's important, because I think a lot of times, especially here, probably in the last 20 years, lawsuits get thrown around so much, and it always seems, well, they just want money or they just want something for nothing. And in this situation, it's warranted because of the severity of what happened, and it goes beyond, even I'm realizing, it goes way beyond just the medical and just the physical things that they have to deal with. I mean, there's so much mental things that they suffer that we probably will never know. And and yes, it's money, and money doesn't solve everything, but it definitely can take care of a lot of bills and make some things a lot easier for a lot of folks.
I wasn't inside that church, but I woke up just the other night having nightmares about that day. And I'm not one to say that I got PTSD. I don't. But this many years out, I had an recurring dream about that day and feeling the helplessness of not being able to get there quicker and make a difference, make a bigger difference.
Well, I know a lot of families probably don't feel the same. You did great. So
when people ask me how many people I think I might have saved, my standard answer to that is not near enough. 26 people died. 26 of my community members, 26 of my friends.
Yeah. So, before we get to waterworks here, so in regards to the case and to this lawsuit that's going on, what do you think the government should do? Because I know we had talked about that there's the possibility that they can, what's the word?
They can appeal.
Try to appeal this. But in your opinion, what do you think that they just should do?
I think the government needs to stop this appealing and stuff and start taking responsibility for what they did not do. They need to stop it. If you're going to make a law that this stuff has to be entered into the system, then follow the law. Stop appealing it. Take responsibility for the mistakes that the government makes. And then get to the settlement part of it. And be fair with the families. Not say, well, we'll pay for your medical bills, but that's it. It goes far beyond, because there's going to be medical bills in the future. There's going to be taking care of a man that will never walk again. Again, how do you put a price? He's a young father. He's got a beautiful young daughter, beautiful wife. And he will roll his daughter down the aisle to give her away instead of walking her down the aisle to give away at her wedding.
Yeah.
He won't be able to run with her in the fields and do the things that normally... Now, I'm not saying that he won't have moments, and he will have moments that are unbelievable with his family. But he's now we're trying to raise money to build him a handicap accessible home, and we're a long ways from that. But he needs a home himself to be able to live as normal as he can. And again, his sister-in-law got shot 4 times in the leg. And she's suffering from lead poisoning herself and have braces on her legs for the longest time not because of the injury, but because of the lead poisoning in her system. And we're not even talking about the 5-year-old boy, the 7-year-old girl, or the now 21-year-old man that is limited to what he can do for a living. And how their lives are affected for the rest of their lives.
Yeah. Well, I'm really glad that we got to talk about this, and I really think that I'm eager to see what happens, and I really hope that the right decisions are made, and they just, like you said, just do the right thing and take responsibility.
I would like to encourage people to get a hold of their United States congressman and tell them, just settle this. Stop dragging it out. Settle it. Let the families have some sort of closure and move forward. It's not about money, but it is in some ways, because they are going to have money just to take care of their needs.
Yeah.
But it's also about dealing with the people that they dropped the ball. You can't say, well, this is one guy that dropped through the cracks, fell through the cracks. No, you have a flood going through the cracks.
Yeah.
And it's time to fix these things.
Yeah.
And it's time to get Barack Obama, after the South Carolina shooting, where the guy came into the church and shot up the church in South Carolina. He was a white guy that shot up a black church. So Barack Obama labeled it a hate crime. And he got 6 families, $29 million with a stroke of a pen, and said it's because hate violence. It's a hate crime. And I've got to ask the current administration, was Sutherland Springs a love crime?
Yeah.
The guy hated Christians. And he came in shooting and killing people. It's time for somebody with a stroke of a pen. And I don't care whether it's a president or the DOJ just stepping down, they're blocking lawsuits and stuff and just saying, it's time to get these people some relief.
Yeah. Well, I hope that can happen. I know we're praying for it as a community, us as a family. I know that's something that we want, and hopefully it happens. So I know we'll be watching this pretty closely, you and I know you will especially. And so as more comes up, we'll definitely let y'all know. But for now, just keep praying for us and keep praying for the community there in Sutherland Springs. I don't know, is there a way that they wanted to donate? The people that wanted to donate to be able to send funds to help with like building a house and things like that, or just helping the community? Is there any way that they can do that, or is this something we'll have to create for them?
Well, they can go to they can donate directly to the church, I guess.
Okay. And we'll put that information in the description below. And
there's actually Military Warriors Support Foundation. And you can go to their website, and what they generally do is they build homes for military that have been wounded in battle and stuff. Military Warriors Support Foundation.
Okay.
And don't just donate to the... Yeah, you can donate to the Military Warriors Support Foundation. I don't want to discourage you from doing that, but there is a spot where you can specifically donate to Kris Workman's house.
Okay.
They have allowed us to go through their 501c3 to be able to donate directly to Kris Workman's house, and they've already got a fund going for that, and we did a fundraiser for that, so they've already got some money for that.
Okay, perfect. So we'll put that information also in the description below, and some links so you can get to that. And
also, first, before we end this video, I would like to thank Baldy's Diner here in Lavernia, Texas. They say they're in Lavernia. They're actually closer to Sutherland Springs. But they're one of my favorite restaurants. And they're a mom and pop place. And boy, you love the waitresses here. They get them from the communities, young girls and older women for the most part that are from our community. And we have a connection here. Great country cooking. I would suggest Baldy's, and I would like to thank Baldy's for the opportunity to film this here. And as with all of my videos, I want to thank True Ballistics.
Yes.
Because they supply me with the means to shoot.
Yes.
Where sometimes ammunition's hard to come by nowadays.
Yeah.
True Ballistics has been supplying me, and they have ammo. And they load it, and it's a good Texas company in Kennedy, Texas. Go to trueballistics.com, call them up at True Ballistics and ask for Dale Hallmark. Tell him the BareFoot Defender sent you.
Absolutely, yes, for sure. And then also don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the ring notification bell. This way you can get notified when we got more videos coming out. And you know, if you do like it, again, just subscribe. That really helps us to do these kind of things. You don't guys see me very often. I'm usually behind the camera, but this was, again, a little bit different. And you know, as I've started living out in this community, it just this has just become a big part of my life too. Just being here and being a part of Sutherland Springs and Lavernia. And for city folks, if you don't understand what it's like to be in a small diner or be in a small town, take a trip one day and go check it out. Find a local place and just support them and get to talk to the community. It's very different. But it is so much fun, and it's definitely a great way to build a family in a small community. And so,
and come visit us at First Baptist Church, Sutherland Springs.
Absolutely, take a trip. If you're from Washington, drive down to Texas or fly. Flying's probably better, but definitely come visit Sutherland Springs, First Baptist Church. If you are going to come, send us a little comment, and maybe you get to meet Steven, because that'd be awesome. He's a cool guy. So anything else, Stephen, you want to say before we wrap up?
That's about it. Call your representatives. Let them know. Settle this.
Absolutely.
We need to put pressure on in any way we can to have, all the way from the top, to have this settled.
Absolutely. All right, guys. So until next time, Stephen Williford, the BareFoot Defender. I'm Daniel. I say the Hungry Hunter, but the camera guy. And just support one another, love one another. And we'll see you on the next video.
God bless.